I've got a really bizarre game for you guys today. Sony's 90s golden child of the PlayStation 1 wasn't just a system that could play games, it could also play music as well. You know, provided it was connected to some speakers. Modern gamers who didn't grow up with this grey bad lad might not know that you could play audio CDs on this thing. It was a real novelty and a selling point at the time, whereas today I guess it's kind of expected for a disc system. Weird to think that it won't be long before the young'uns won't know what a CD is, isn't it? But that's progress and there's no gatekeeping here. Although I appreciate that saying the word young'uns aged me about 20 years. Did you know that some PlayStation 1 game discs worked as audio CDs in your CD player too? Because that was distilled at the time. It wasn't really a feature that was marketed, and some of the games that you could listen to on your CD player wouldn't include all of the tracks. But it was cool as a kid systematically putting all your discs into a CD player just to find out what would work and what wouldn't. I had a lot of time on my hands. And if you were so inclined, you could also make music with your PlayStation, if you happen to own a game like this. Fluid, the interactive sound lab. This isn't actually mine, it belongs to Nostalgia Nerd, and if he's watching this video, this is probably the first time he's even realised that it's gone. Sorry Peter, I've touched it, therefore it's mine now. Fluid was released in 1996 in Japan for the PlayStation only, under the name Depth, in the context of an ocean depth, I think, probably. It was developed by a company named Opus, a Tokyo-based company which is still active today. Fluid is a game of theirs that really stands out, but they do have plenty more in their history. Fluid wasn't just some sort of artistic one-off. The company was named Opus for the meaning of the word being an artistic work. From their website, I gather in the 90s when the company was founded, it was meant to fill a gap in gaming of expression of creativity and individuality, which sounds awesome. Don't quote me on this though, I had to use Google Translate. But yeah, Depth is a real expression of creativity and individuality. When it was released in the UK in 1998, it became Fluid Interactive Sound Lab. I did try to find out why a UK audience needed the name change, because it's not like depth is a rude word, unless you say it in a really dirty voice, like this. Depth. Calm down guys, come on. Before we start looking at this, I would advise you not to take any drugs, because you will not need them. This isn't really a game as you might expect a game to be. In fact, I'm not sure if I even want to describe it as such. Although you will get to control this dolphin, there's no score, no storyline progression, no way of dying, and no upgrades. And yeah, I did just say you control this dolphin. This dolphin is the only character in this entire Bizzare soundscape. Fluid at its very heart is a sort of sound mixer. It's a way to experience trance music from the inside, playing from within those bars and semitones, becoming music itself. You could say that if you're feeling poetic. If you're not, you could just say it's literally a bunch of music tracks and there's a dolphin. Doesn't sound quite as flowery though, does it? Your dolphin starts up in a mostly barren underwater canyon of sorts. Your dolphin can jump up out of the water, but there's nothing especially interesting up there to see. And it's not like you can do any cool tricks or bop a ball about or anything. It is sort of soothing to jump around a little bit, but presumably, so they wouldn't have to work out how to draw a splash, the screen dips to white once the fishy mammal lad hits the water. And that's a bit rubbish, honestly. I like how the screen wobbles once the camera's back underwater though, that's a nice artistic touch. Anyway, this is the main hub area, and it's here you'll find these weird stone symbols that you can't do anything with at first, apart from sort of bop them with your long nose. These represent the game levels, all of which can be unlocked by finding them in the previous stage. I'll explain that in a minute because it's nowhere near as complicated as it sounds. So let's play the first stage, Peace. The highly complex concept of peace, literally watered down to a dolphin swimming through a foggy turquoise ocean. Yeah, alright, sure. I think my depiction of peace would be a nice pub which has no one else in it and all the speakers just constantly play dial-up modem sounds. That would be awesome. Why isn't that a thing? Someone make that a thing. The soundtrack is the main event here, not the dolphin or all these fish that keep cutting him up. You can manipulate the sound of certain instruments by pressing the shape buttons on your PlayStation 1 controller and moving the Dolphin up and down. This allows you to do little things like piano riffs or drum beats. You don't have control really over things like rhythm or style, and all the instruments play in the key of the main track, which is helpful for those of us who are tone deaf. It is kind of soothing and engaging to feel like you're kind of making music, but of course you're not. There's 2 basic versions of each track on each level, which might add different ambient background instruments, but they will stay within the same BPM. The Dolphin does this weird spin that's supposed to be a drum roll, but it just sounds like crap. Really made me jump the first time that I heard it. To find the next stage, you need to look out for a new stage name pop up at the bottom of the screen while you're swimming along. When you see that, you'll need to swim over to the side of the screen before it disappears. It's a pain in the arse if you don't get there in time, as you have to go around the whole level again before it pops up. Not that these levels are levels? They aren't any more than videos playing on a loop. The Dolphin can't touch or interact with any part of them, and graphics wise, it's really obvious we're watching a flat video with a 3D dolphin tagged in front. Now and again, question marks show up for the level change, and that's when it all kicks off. Whoa. Sadly, these weird horrorscapes only last for a few seconds. It's like it's teasing you with just a quarter of an E or the tiniest slip of LSD. Just enough for you to go, whoa, that was madhouse, but I'm not going to develop a drug dependency. That being said, I'm quite sure that if you played this stoned, you would have an absolutely amazing time. I recorded this footage after being awake for 40 hours, not because of drugs, because of depression, and it was very trippy. Even the tall guy who doesn't have a face and stands in the corner of my bedroom agreed with me. We don't normally see eye to eye, because he doesn't have a face. Hey, did you know that dolphins are commonly observed in the wild to masturbate, or just, have a very nice time with other dolphins of any gender? That's interesting, isn't it? However, there's no other dolphins in this entire game, so one can only assume you're playing as some wanker. What? Am I off my tits? Mr. Squishes? No, he's not talking, so I must be sober. This must be a rare case of a game being more mental than I am. Yeah, it's a dolphin swimming through pylons, and going at speed as well. This thing isn't mucking about. Imagine if you looked up and saw a dolphin speeding through the sky and into pylons. You'd assume that Ryanair's PR department had got very creative indeed. Okay, this is very soothing though. I'm not even playing it for this long because I need the footage. I'm really finding it enjoyable in a mindless way. Seeing the dolphin zoom around so smoothly is activating a happy buzz in my brain. I think it's very stimmy. It's the same as watching POV videos of roller coasters. And the music is good, it's repetitive, yeah, but it is fun to muck around with it by moving around our dolphin friend. After that pylon level, things get a little weak. There's a level of a glowing underwater canyon that is pretty, I suppose, but now the music's starting to feel kind of really very repetitive. I don't think I'd be able to tell the tracks apart that much in a Spotify playlist. This level's called Tube. Not a fan of this one either, it's really making me feel claustrophobic. Swimming forever down a tunnel is some Lovecraftian SCP territory. No thank you, no. Temple. Now this one is pretty, but I'm just annoyed that I can't go and investigate these cool ruins. The frame rate isn't having a very nice time either, which is quite annoying. And not being able to touch the temple is making me feel grumpy. This game is making me feel grumpy and queasy. I don't normally get both of those feelings at once outside of standing in line at a lunchtime in any central London post office. Dolphin in space! Asteroids flying out of the screen! Not calming. I don't want to be lamped in the face by a space rock, thank you. Look how trippy this one is. This one would be amazing when you're stoned. Wow, I've got no idea what's going on, but I'm enjoying it. You know, when you look at this whole game as a work of art, it really does stand up. Once I started looking at it like I'd look at a picture in a museum, I realised that's the whole point of this. It's an experience, one that doesn't have to be positive or negative. I like the idea of just observing it and not thinking too hard about it. The problem is, I'm neurotic and I can't do that, so why is this dolphin swimming through these places? Is it off its bobbins? How come there's no other dolphins? How can it play instruments just by swimming about? Did it swallow a harmonica? And why are there so many pylons in this place? What? I'm getting 5G poisoning just looking at this. And underwater woods are quite pretty. I'm getting bored now though. Each of the soundtracks, they don't sound dissimilar enough, and the Dolphin tends to use the same or similar sounds on each level. This is more like an interactive screensaver, but it's just too repetitive for me to have on in the background. Shell, boring. Garden, absolutely not a garden, that's a coral reef, but you know, whatever. There we go, that's all of the stages. Now that we've got all the tracks, we can start doing a little bit of mucking around with the music. Your dolphin swims into this swirly bobbin thing, and now we can look through each track that we've got. You'll see on the left here is where each instrument used in the track is listed. You can turn them on and off and swap them for different patterns. You can also put effects on them and change the beats per minute of the whole track. This is really where you can actually get creative with your mixing about to get the sound that you want. You can change the volume and different aspects of each instrument track, but overall it's a very basic music manipulator. It's essentially a bunch of samples. You can't do any of your own composition, you can only switch between two versions of the same track, and as the entire sequence appears to be about 4 bars long, you wouldn't really want to leave this on your TV to listen to while you do other things. You can mess with the visualizations here a little bit, which is mesmerizing, but again, gets boring kind of quick. I'm really in two minds about this game. On the one hand, it's a really solid music visualization program. It's also really easy enough to mess around with, you know, for somebody who isn't particularly good at making music, and really quite soothing to play at times. And you can feel that you are putting your own stamp on the track. Kind of. But at the same time, I'm getting that really weird feeling after playing it for a couple of hours. You know that feeling you get where you realise you're wasting precious minutes of your life just keeping your brain mindlessly occupied? Like, it's not rewarding in the way that a game usually is. I feel a bit like when I spent those 2 weeks in depression doing nothing at all apart from buying people's spaceships in No Man's Sky and then reselling them. I just feel like bored. Well, not bored. Procrastinating, that's what it is. Yeah, Fluid is a procrastinator. An arty procrastinator. While you can save your edited tracks, it's not like you can export them or anything. And I started to get a bit annoyed that I couldn't make my own tunes up. I don't know, maybe the music just isn't my style. I like the whole thing, but I think I just like it because it's really, really weird. It is more of a work of art than a video game, and there's only so long you can stare at a work of art before you get, you know, arted out. If you want a music maker on the PlayStation, you're better off getting Music 2000 by Jester Interactive. That's the sequel to Music, which was released the year earlier. And it's a fair bit more complicated and takes some getting used to, but is much more interactive and lets you muck about with samples and beats, and has considerably more customization options. With that being said, Fluid has earned its place as a weird and quirky little slice of PlayStation history. It may be best used as a passive procrastination tool, but you know what? I kinda like that. It's good for switching your brain off when things get a little bit too much in real life, and you can't get hold of any weed. Well, that's the review done. I'm off to go swimming.